Let's see this. Data mined patch notes for classes and spells. Build 38 7000. Wait, never mind. Going through here, I didn't read that right. They took away for 10 seconds. Okay, here we go. So cooldown. Oh my god, wait a second. Places an AMZ that reduces spell damage taken by 20%, so they didn't reduce the value. But now it lasts for 8 seconds or until it absorbs total health times 1 plus versatility damage. And I'm assuming they remove the conduit, right? Oh no, so the conduit still makes it long. But I mean, okay, so we just have to... Wow, so they reduced the duration and increased the cooldown and did the absorb cap. Okay, so we need these servers to come up pronto and see what that number is going to be. Maybe someone can do math, but if it's under like 50k, it's going to be pretty useless other than a... Okay, chat, first of all, let's take a second here. The last time you guys joined my stream when patch notes were posted and you all started screaming about how Paladin was dead and it was just because there were 9 lines of text, just fucking relax for a second. Their goal with AMZ was to make it less impactful in raids with keeping the same effectiveness in dungeons. That's why they want to do the absorb cap. The nerf that I proposed was a longer cooldown or a longer duration, and they did both of those plus the absorb cap. The absorb cap potentially kills the spell outside of usage for a personal, but it still has usages for a personal, right? So, for example, if there's like a tank mechanic on a boss, this is if, let's just say in the scenario that AMZ has an absorb cap where basically any raid damage happens and it instantly disappears, right? Then obviously its use in raids becomes much, much worse than it used to be. But it could still be used on a tank. It could be used on like a small group of players. In Mythic Plus, it could still be used on prides because there's just less players soaking things. So we're going to need to see exactly how this works. And very important, before we test it, it's really important to talk about that when we made the argument earlier that AMZ, even if they removed AMZ from the game, which is just the argument that they nerf it so much that it basically doesn't matter or exist, DKs are still a good progression class. They're like at the very top tier of melee. And it's almost not even depending on tuning. Like, they're not even tuned, honestly, that well right now. Especially going into next raid. But, like, there's some things they do that are just so valuable. Like, their execute is still really good. They have really good burst in the right scenario. Death's Advance is consistently insane for hard mythic fights. AMS still pre-immune stuff. Like, they still have grip. They're still really good. One thing that's interesting about this, too, is that this makes Blood DK AMZ... I actually like what they did with this change, and I don't know if they did this on purpose, but by making it total health and verse, so DK is a stack that, or DK tank is a tank that likes verse, and also they have more health, and they have abilities that increase their health. So it's possible that Blood DK AMZ still somewhat mirrors what it used to be. The number I have in my head is like a 50k absorb cap makes it pretty much irrelevant to any raid damage. However, if they make it 100k total damage absorbed or more, or maybe around 100k, I think that's basically a non-change. So it's just totally gonna be what they end up scaling it to. Like a Blood DK, yeah, like Blood DK AMZ with Vamp would still be pretty good, right? Like, do Blood DKs get around 100k health? It's got to be like with like Rally and Vamp, it's certainly over 100k. So Blood will be noticeably better than other ones. So we'll see. I would not have any reactions to this yet until we test it and see the numbers. But more than anything else, I'm surprised they increased its CD while also doing this, because this basically shits on it. And also they're nerfing it in PvP with this for basically no reason too. Like, again, I know nothing about PvP. I'm just going to assume that DKs are not completely broken, right? Like in 9.0.5, like just reducing their AMZ seems like something that isn't good for them in PvP. So normal Blood DK has 67k health with 25% verse. The AMZ absorbs around 84k damage, and that's before using Vamp, having Rally, or raid buffs probably, yeah. And then you have to divide the cap into 0.8 to account for the 20%, correct, yeah. All right, so if I put down, I have 42k health, I'm putting down an AMZ. I look at my AMZ, and it doesn't say it. Maybe it's in the spell book. There we go, yeah, there we go. Exactly right. Anti-magic zone lasts for 11 seconds or until it absorbs 44k damage. So basically, it is effective on raid damage up to 200k, right? So basically, it's effective as a DPS DK imagine 200k worth of raid damage that you're stacked in. So that's 20 players stacked in one AMZ, and it's gone basically as soon as anyone would have taken 10k damage. And during that 10k, they would have reduced it by 20%. So that's very fucking bad. That's like basically, it's not worthless, but it's pretty close. I think its uses would be better used on smaller groups of people soaking things. So if you guys have seen where DKs, like when all of melee moves in to soak the seeds plus the knockback. Also, something that's important about absorption caps is they usually work well on snap hits. So let's say, for example, you have 10 melee stacked up, and I have a 44k absorb thing, and we all took dot damage up to 180k of effective AMZ reduction, okay? And then there was one big hit at the end hit us for like 80% of our health. AMZ, at least how it used to work, is it would count as a reduction on the last hit, even if it breaks it. That's how it that's how I think it'll work. So it's probably still going to be like really good on really large hits. Darkness better now? I mean, Darkness has always been on the same tier, so it's clearly better now. Yeah. As an actual, it's good as a tank CD if you're ever playing a fight where your tanks take actual lethal amounts of magic damage. But I don't think that'll be a thing because the two bosses in the last 5 years that have truly been like just absolutely shit on tanks, the two standouts are clearly Jaina and Denathrius. They were by far the two hardest fights to tank as a tank. But all of that lethal damage was physical. Yes, there was incidental magic damage, but all of the actual damage you took was physical. It was just really hard. So if you look historically, the really, really hard tank fights, the thing that's actually killing your tank isn't magic. I think it's going to be relatively unnerfed in 5-mans. I'd have to see. I don't know how much damage prides do on like high key levels. I actually don't know that, but I imagine it'll last for a good duration of the pride and not go away instantly. Here's the one thing I need to test. If you look at the tooltip, it says until it absorbs, X damage based on your health, which by the way, a good change for this again is that these AMZ will clearly be better for blood, which is good because blood needs AMZ more than DPS TK does. I need to know if there's a hit that takes everyone to 10%. So let's say Anti-Magic Zone has been put down and it already absorbed 40k damage, so there's 4k left. But then there's one bit of snap damage that does, 80% of everyone's health in the raid, right? Like, so let's say everyone in the raid has 40k health. That's like 800k total raid health. Let's say something does 700k. Does AMZ reduce that hit at the very end, the entire thing, by 20%? I believe it does. I would guess that it does, because it'd be really hard for it to calculate it differently if it all happened at the same time. What would be funny is if it counted every event separately and it only worked for some people and not others, which would make it really bad. But I mean, if it can still work for a snap hit, that'll be huge. I mean, you guys have already seen the testings. I won't really go over them, but there's a few fights in this raid that still have massive hits on your raid, and AMZ still has a lot of value for that. So, but obviously the reduced cooldown is a big nerf. So, what about AMZ on blood? I mean, you can just do math, but let's just say I don't have a fort buff. I'm specking blood. I don't have a lot of verse on my gear. But let's just say if I go to my tooltip now with AMZ, it's obviously to 67k because I have higher health. If I had verse, I could probably get this to 100k no vamp. And if I hit vamp, right, let's see if it scales with vamp. I assume it does. It does. So if I hit vampiric blood, it's at 87%, and then amplify that with vamp. I don't have a fort buff. I don't have the Kyrian health increase as well, which you'd probably play Kyrian on blood if you were to play it in a raid setting. So I'd guess if you used it correctly, and I guess you would probably use AMZ with Rally now as well. Those now have an interaction. You could probably have a Blood DK get a pretty beefy AMZ in a raid. So definitely Blood DK stonks, I think, relatively are increased by this change because of that. Okay, so there's more changes. So let's go back to the notes. Let me refresh because there's probably been more stuff added. PvP talents, I don't care. Don't care. PvP talents, do not care at all. Legendaries, did they... Wait, I thought this was 5. It got nerfed. That's unfortunate. Death Chakram is also weirdly bugged right now with how it spreads, so they have to literally be pixel stacked for it to work. So who knows how that'll go. Although there's nothing better. I don't know if, again, and I won't really talk about the class meta at all, but man, do you have any idea how happy I would be if hunters were unironically picking Necrolord. Do you know no class in the history of WoW has needed Fleshcraft more than all specs of Hunter need Fleshcraft? Like, oh my god, please let them play that. Okay, so moving down. Rune Carving Power. Shifting Power, this is the Night Fae Mage Legendary. Shifting Power can be channeled while moving. Each enemy hit by Shifting Power grants you 1% crit and haste up to 10% for 10 seconds. Okay, so this part doesn't really matter. That seems like too short of a cooldown. I mean, there's just no way that's better than Disciplinary Command, right? Like, it's like you can just read it and it's not as good. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Fuck that. All right, more Mistweaver nerfs. Or buffs, sorry. Not nerfs. Do not scream at me. Okay, wait a second. Wraps the target in Healing Mists, healing for 360% of spell power. Oh, let me enlarge this. Over 6 seconds. So no changes with enveloping. They just changed the mana cost. So this is a mana enveloping mist becomes more mana efficient. That's not going to change too much. This is just a level change. Wait, no, this isn't a level change. This makes their mastery effect revival. Am I reading that right? Vivify or it procs off of revival. I see. Vivify causes a gust of healing mist, instantly healing the primary target for 0.1% of spell power. And they made it work with revival. Okay, I don't know enough about Monk to know how valuable that is, but obviously making revival... I mean, if you're talking about one of the many ways to, in quotes, fix Mistweaver, one of the main ones is they have revival. It's on the same cooldown as Healing Tide, and it's not that much more powerful. Same thing as Trank. So with Shaman having all of this stuff, which I think is the closest comp to why you'd bring a Mistweaver, even though it seems the same to compare them to Holy Paladin, I think those are much different. It needs to be more. So, like, if you're only going to give a class 1 cooldown and basically 0 raid utility, that 1 cooldown has to be fucking insane. So the fact that they're at least looking at making revival better is important, because I think revival... Like, honestly, I think there's no cooldown in the game that currently does this that's anything like Aura of Sac from, like, that thing that Holy Paladins did on, like, Antorus, where, like, that healing cooldown actually just lay on hands your entire raid for, like, 6 seconds. Dude, revival should lay on hands your whole raid. Straight up. It should be that powerful of a cooldown because they quite literally have nothing else. Like, from 10%. Like, everyone should go 10% to 100. All of them. All right, so what is this? Apply Aura modifies damage and healing done. So they buffed Rising Sun Kick by reducing the Aura to reduce its damage. They buffed Blackout Kick by the same. They buffed Tiger Palm. They buffed Spinning Crane Kick. And then they nerfed Revival to make up for the fact that it now gets Gust of Mist. Is that a net buff? Huge net buff. Okay, cool. Lit. I'll believe you, Twitch chat. And then they have... Okay, so they added Monk Legendaries, too. Your abilities have a low chance to cast Bone Dust Brew at your target's location. Okay, that's just going to depend on the proc rate. Call to Arms for Weapons of Order here. Brewmaster calls forth Nijuao, the Black Ox, to assist you for 12 seconds. Windwalker, Weapons of Order, calls forth Zwen the White Tiger to assist you. And Mistweaver, Weapons of Order, calls Yulon to assist you. Okay, so that seems weak, because for Windwalker at least, yes, you're getting 12 extra seconds of homie, but it would only be super good if you actually combined it with the other legendary, right? Like, losing that much haste, even though haste isn't your best stat, it just makes your opener so much better. I don't know if that is, like, super sick for Brewmaster or Mistweaver, but also keep in mind, guys, that... Here, let me log over to my Monk. There's a Soulbind, especially for you Mythic Plus players. There's a Soulbind that you probably won't get for a while into the patch, but it's important to look at it, that allows you to get your Weapons of Order consistently on, like, a minute and 20-second cooldown. So obviously that makes this legendary just all the better, right? Like, you just have a really low cooldown Zwen. But you, like, lose the haste, which is, like, pretty huge. So, like, I mean, obviously, like, historically, Brewmaster has not liked haste. Historically, Windwalker has never liked haste. And they're playing a haste legendary. Why? Not because it's haste, but because the value is fucking enormous. 33% haste on a 2-minute cooldown for 20 seconds is just fucking huge. Like, that's just very, very large. That's a lot. So I think the fact that this is just such a good legendary makes it unlikely, I think, for me to that would be run. However, if you're running this Soulbind, yeah, Weapons of Order released a blast. It does, like, pretty meaningless arcane damage. And then it just reduces the cooldown on weapons of order by 8 seconds per affected enemy. So if you're using this in Mythic Plus, you're talking consistent minute and 20-second weapons of orders. So I'm thinking for maybe a combination of that with Mistweaver and Brewmaster could be good. However, I don't think it's quite good enough for Windwalker, even though Tony owns. But yeah, I don't know. Okay, so this is the Night Fae Windwalker. That's the bitch that like shoots the little lines on the floor in front of you. Your abilities have a chance to reset Phaline Stomp is doubled. Ooh. That sounds like a lot. Okay, enemies and allies hit by Phaline Stomp are affected by Fae exposure, increasing your damage and healing against them by 8% for 10 seconds. That I think that could be good. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that'd be good. Fallen Order summons one additional whatever your spec is adept for 24 seconds. While you have an active adept, your abilities that critically hit. While you have an active adept, your abilities that crit reduce the cooldown of Fallen Order by 3 seconds. So I'm assuming if you were to like spinning crane kick on a monk, right? It wouldn't actually give you reduction based on every crit. It would probably just be the singular ability that crit, which would make the cooldown reduction potential of this pretty low. And it's also probably on an ICD, would need to be tested, right? Like if I spinning crane kick, it's not going to reduce the cooldown on my shit by like everything, right? Okay. Interesting. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on and then we'll do some more general stuff. But so far, interesting AMZ nerf. Again, we already went over that a lot. Not going to do that again. Bunch of PvP talents that I don't care about. Mage Legendary, that doesn't matter. Looks like they already nerfed the Deathstalker one. The Monk one. Looks like just slight buffs to Mistweaver. Slight in the Enveloping Mist. This is certainly a damage buff. I would need to know by how much. Because they don't do awful damage. Then a big revival buff, apparently. Okay, moving on. Read the comments. We'll see that in a second. All right, Covenant abilities. Mind Games cooldown changed from 45-second recharge to 45-second cooldown. Charges changed from 1 charge to none. Why are they doing that? Is that just because... Oh, that's probably because they changed the Venthyr Legendary. Okay, they completely changed the Venthyr Legendary for Priest. Okay, that's... Okay, we need to look at these then. So this is not important to look at yet. They went away from the charge thing on the Venthyr Legendary. That's why they changed this. Let's read Night Fae first. Enter a pact with the Death Loa, calling forth a haunted mask that lingers on a target until Fae Guardian ends. Copies the benefit of the current Fae Guardian on a target, follows your direct mask. Bro, the mask is losing me. I'm just assuming... Is it a rune carving power? Okay. Dude, I don't know. I don't play Priest. I'm just going to assume this is like double CDR. Okay, so here's the thing. In raids specifically, Fae Guardians is overrated, I think. I think it has better uses in dungeons, but basically Fae Guardian's best ability is to make sure that a very strong cooldown is up for something it would otherwise not be. So a couple examples would be making combust lower, although usually they have to wait for their trinket, so it's usually overrated on mage to give Fae Guardians. It's very good for things like Frost Mage. It would be good if like you wanted to, you know, have meta. Let's say your lust is 3 minutes and 20 seconds into the fight, and you could throw 3 Fae Guardians on a Demon Hunter, and then they have their meta up on time. I just don't know if that is ever important enough for the priests you are bringing to run that as a legendary. It's almost guaranteed not to be a damage increase over a raid damage increase over any other legendary, in my opinion. I think it looks not good enough. That's all. Could be wrong. Mind Games lasts an additional 3,000 seconds and reverses an additional 10% damage or healing. When Mind Games ends, gain 3% crit for each second remaining for 10 seconds. Well, that's a lot of seconds. So clearly, this is they put a couple extra zeros. Clearly, Mind Games is not supposed to last an hour or 50 minutes or whatever that is. So we need to keep our eye on this one. I think Disc Priests are in an interesting spot right now. You could tell me that you think Disc Priests won't be in the raid, and I could hear your argument. But also, if you told me you think with other nerfs and things like that, that like you'll just find a way to make double Disc Priest work, there's a lot of arguments for that, right? Like Barrier becomes infinitely more powerful with the with no longer having the ability to bring 3 to 4 basically just 2-minute cooldown things that are just as good as barrier. Like you're gonna have one AMZ in your raid potentially that's super strong with Blood Decay, and your DPS ones got nerfed by a lot. So just knowing that a very popular raid cooldown got nerfed, I mean, just look at progression in Nathria. Look how prevalent AMZ was. Barrier becomes a lot more valuable. That being said, obviously there's a Spirit Shell nerf. You don't know if you're going to play Spirit Shell. If you're playing Evangelism, you have to worry about fights having enough damage intake to actually make use of your ramps and not overheal. Like one of the many benefits of the old Spirit Shell was that the overhealing was almost none because your entire ramp was going to be used, where it's really hard to pull that off outside of expected fights where you have a ton of incoming damage. But it also enables underhealing so that that's more valuable, right? But so right, Disc is probably still going to be really strong. It also does damage. So this is like the main thing that's targeting, right? Because again, because I don't care about PvP, I think it's just important to mention that Mind Games is mainly a Disc Priest thing in PvE, and I think they'd probably be fiending for a good Legendary, so... Assuming when this gets tuned to have numbers that make sense, that this looks definitely pretty solid for them, I think, so... Alright, and we have more Warlock changes. Without me actually looking into them, I'm going to call our resident Warlock expert, THD, aka the Hung Dude, aka that huge dick, and see what the changes actually mean.
Hello?
Hello. What?
Yeah, I'm in the middle of eating dinner. Oh yeah, you want the Warlock stuff, right?
Yeah, what do?
Alright, so they nerfed the Giga Cringe playstyle for Affliction, which was that conduit, thank god.
Okay, so you're no longer going to be drain souling for your whole life?
Well, yeah, and you're no longer an immobile turret. So
okay,
that's good.
So that's good. Love that.
Yeah. It means your single target's probably really bad, but
okay,
that's
and
fine.
then there is a straight buff to the Shadowburn talent for Destro.
Yeah, that talent was never picked, so that's good.
Would it ever be? Because is it like what it used to? So I played Shadowburn a ton in...
No, it wasn't like that.
Oh, shit. Dude, I loved old Shadowburn. That was so insane.
They've experimented with Shadowburn a lot since Legion. It used to just basically be Conflagration 2, but it's still kind of a mediocre talent, probably. I don't...
Right,
the reset cooldown is very good for stuff like explosives, you know, like mobs that die in like instant.
Yeah. It's basically for like a constant target swapping fight would be the only thing it would potentially be good at, where you're killing stuff consistently. Yeah. Okay. And then the rune carving powers. It looks like they just named them all.
They buffed some of the numbers and changed the numbers around.
Any that would actually change anything?
The Venfear one's still dog shit. The Knife A one got to the right number. They forgot to add the 0, so it's 5%. That one's okay.
Okay.
Scouring Tide one got a pretty sizable nerf, so that one's like kind of bad now, to be fair.
Okay.
And the final one for Necrolord, I think people are gonna maul in PvP about that one.
Is that Shard of Annihilation?
Yeah, that one.
Oh, whoa. Okay. Increases the crit by 100% and critical strike damage for Incinerate.
I don't think that one's like insane in like PvE scenarios, but in PvP, those Demon Bolt hits for like 30k on live right now, so that would be pretty bad.
Oh, okay. That's big damn. All right, very lit. All right, that's all, I think. Anything else?
Nah, nothing too wild. Just that single target affliction play.
Did you say you're eating dinner?
Yeah.
What are you having for dinner?
I don't know how to say it in English, but it's rice with croquetas and you know.
Fuck yeah. Is there anything you'd like to say to the chat?
Yeah, fuck that playstyle. Thank God it's nerfed. Also, bye DK.
All right, see you. Okay, so you guys heard him. Yeah, bye DK. Hi Blood DK. Bye DPS DK. Okay, so that's it for Warlock. And then arms, PvP talents don't matter. Although this looks like a general change. Right. Hurl your weapon. Wait. Oh, this is including demolition. But nothing... Okay, so nothing changes if you don't have demolition, but it doubles the percent if you run demolition, I guess. Holy shit. Oh boy, that's what the talent does. All right, and then someone said to read the comments. Thanks, Max. Love you, Max. Keep up the good work. Oh my god, we said don't do total absorption cap. That is true. I've been heavily advocating for them not to do this. But a cap basically renders it useless. Not useless. It reduces its use by a lot, though. Direct all hate mail to Max. I mean, justice arrived by DK stacking. First of all, you don't know that. It's okay. People stack class roll expansion, but it's not okay for some others who can't be strong for a whole tier. Also, I wonder outside of Fire Mage, things that have been stacked at 4 or more for a raid tier very publicly, I wonder how many times they haven't gotten nerfed. So like DKs had the main reason that they were stacked this raid nerfed. Sub-rogues were run, many of them on Zool, and then they've been obliterated for 2 expansions. Fire Mages are consistently 4 or 5 of them, and they're never nerfed, but that's because they're the main characters of WoW. But I wonder how many other classes have been stacked that much, and then I guess Lock, Lock and Crucible? I don't think so. I think Method was running 10 Locks and Crucible, but they lost to someone else using a lot of Shamans instead. So I think Warlock was overrated there, and they didn't nerf them because of it. Priest in Crucible? Priest wasn't stacked in Crucible either. In fact, you wanted to run... Oh, you mean for the first boss. The second boss, you only wanted 1 or 2 Priests because you actually killed the ads too fast with dots, and you wanted them to die at specific times. Mr. Strimmer, you missed the other Hunter Legendaries. Oh yeah, I think I did gloss over them, didn't I? Let's look. Well, all they did was rename a lot of them, right? Did they actually change numbers too? When Wild Spirits hits fewer than 5 targets, there's a 35% chance to cause... Oh, so this used to be 100, right? This one used to be 100? Or was it 50? It was a higher number, right? Oh yeah, it was 200%. That's what it was. It was fucking 200, which made no sense. Unless it meant it was going to happen 3 times. Right, 100% chance... 200% chance to have something happen twice? Yeah, that's weird. Okay, so they nerfed that by a lot. Is that still good? If you're hitting exactly 4 targets, is that good? It's good, but imagine in a dungeon, yo tank remove the 5th target now. Yeah, it would never be a dungeon legendary, right? This would be like a very specific raid fight kind of legendary. That's all it would be. Which is kind of annoying, because like, that's kind of very specific. Okay, Pact of the Soul Stalkers. When your resonating arrow deals damage to your target, your party gains 10% increased crit for 10 seconds. That was not changed. They just gave it a new name, right? I believe that's exactly what it said before. So people don't like simp stuff, but I think this probably has a, I mean, it's okay, I guess. I think the main problem with Hunter is that you feel bad if you're not playing Night Fae right now. Like, Kyrion's good, but it's, like, not better. Okay, and then Venthyr. Bonus kill shots from Flayed Shot cause 6 targets within 8 yards to bleed for 35% of the damage dealt by kill shot over 6 seconds. That's an interesting idea, but what they're doing is they're not doubling down. They're making a Covenant you would only play for single target do AoE when there's a far, far better cleave in AoE legendary. So, I feel like it's the wrong idea, right? Like, I could almost even argue that could actually just be on the thing, you know? Mythic plus Keystone exchange. Okay, wait, here's one thing before we go to the key thing. Players who are not satisfied with the selection of gear that the Great Vault has provided them for the week can now opt to receive a new currency that will let them choose from a number of alternative rewards, including Anima, Stygia, and Soul Ash. So, instead of being locked into only getting Stygia, you now can get whatever you want. I mean, that's just a good change. I'm trying to find a way of like how it could be better, but I mean, it's just objectively fine, right? Like, it's good that you have more options, right? I guess maybe you could consider Valor or Conquest, but you're like capped weekly on those anyway, so I don't think that you wouldn't pick Valor or Conquest ever, right? Because you could literally just get that. Like, these are things that are like hard capped. It wouldn't let you go over the cap. So here's the Keystone exchange. To sup in the Hall of Holding and Ouroboros will now offer a Keystone to players who don't have one, as long as they have completed 1 Shadowlands dungeon on Mythic Plus difficulty. Okay, so you don't have to... If you didn't do a key last week, and you didn't get one from your vault, you no longer have to do a dungeon to get one. You can just go talk to Sup. It's push a T backwards. Okay, so you have to talk to push a T to get a Keystone. And then now, push a T also spawns at the end of Mythic Plus dungeons that are completed before the time limit. He will offer a one-time Keystone exchange to any player whose current Keystone is at or below the level of the dungeon that was recently completed on time. Keystones that are at a higher level than the dungeon that are completed cannot be traded, including the Keystone that was used to start the run. Okay, I see. So basically what they want is for 1 time a week, if you guys feel like you have a dead key, to be able to randomly re-roll it. And what they don't want is for you to be like, well, we can time a 28 Plaguefall, but nothing else. And you time a 27 Plaguefall, and you just fucking YOLO that new 28. Like, you won't be able to re-roll things you just leveled up. So it's ones you currently have. It doesn't say 1 time a week. Oh, I was guessing 1 time a week. So you're telling me that if your entire group has 25 keys and you time a 25 mists, and you time the 25 mists and you get it to a 26, you could then re-roll every single time you timed a 25. You would be able to re-roll 4 of your 25 keys that are sitting in your party, not the one that you guys used. The other 4 people can re-roll infinitely. So like every time you do a dungeon, you can re-roll it 1 time. I mean, that's an awesome change, right? 1 per dungeon, not per person. Ah, wait.